I would like to give a talk on something soft, something rather not very technical, but at the same time super important, and using the language of development, of developers, our jargon, or how do we call it? Yeah. Oh, one word about me. Besides organizing Borso.js, I'm also CEO of Xfang. I was there for a time a developer. However, I quit quite recently, and now I'm only focusing on business development and doing this activist things. However, I still use programming as a tool for my work. And yeah, so the plan of the talk, the first part I already done. So someone's going. I already done the first point. So now why I'm delivering this talk and what's the inspiration, my hints for cooperation, questions instead of answers. Unfortunately, that's the usual thing with me, that you get more questions than answers, and reading and materials that I highly recommend. So this presentation is especially for programmers. So I'm sorry, Anya, if I don't feel offended. I want to explain communication and cooperations in terms that are familiar to programmers, so that we can see similar structure that comes, for example, from our everyday architecture and development, to see it also in communication and in interactions between humans. And obviously, why people say, for example, that abstract thinking is difficult. No, it's the other way around. Specific thinking is difficult. Abstract thinking is easier. That's why we make abstractions. They're hiding the details. Okay, so what inspired me to this talk? Something hit me very strongly when I was a junior. When I was a junior, I wanted to persist my job. I wanted to. I started in 2013. I was earlier a teacher, and my main goal was to take a programming course and to be a programmer. So I really wanted not to lose my job, but to persist. So the funny fact is that people get the job because of their skills. They learn how to program in React. They are very strong in ORMs, or they know how to implement difficult, let's say, architectures on AWS. They have some very specific skill, and that's the reason why someone hired them. But later, it appears that they are fired because of poor communication. Their communication isn't good enough, and for some reason they got fired. And this is very interesting, because it means that communication is as important as skills. Could you imagine? Maybe even more important. I don't know. So first of all, we all know the method. We're programmers. We have a methodic approach to anything. So we have certain tools how to solve problems. So first we define the problem, then we get rid of the details. So we hide them, the details, some kind of easy environment where we can find what's going on there, and analyze, solve things in smaller chunks. So we always divide bigger problems into small problems, because small problem is easier to tackle than a big one. And then we achieve composability. So the solutions we provide, we join them together, and finally the group of solutions, of small solutions, are solving us a very big problem. And later we look for reusability of the same solution to a different part of the project, or different setup. So maybe we can in an abstraction solve the problem in communication, and later even use it in the code, for example. It's very funny, but it's true. So however, let's make a totally different approach. Let's make a stupid approach first. Let's do something that doesn't make sense and is totally against our intuition. Let's ask an AI chatbot what is human cooperation about. So I Googled for the best AI chatbot in the world, and Google told me, hey, try with Cookie AI. Okay, so I messaged her. Hi, Cookie, nice to meet you. Hi there, Gentara, it's nice to meet you too, Gentara. I have a presentation today at Warsaw.js. Can I ask you some questions? Oh, cool. Will you include me in your presentation? Yes. Can I publish the chat with you? She said yes. Okay, so that's very interesting. She was very communicative here and wanted to be presented, so that's why I can share it. Okay, so what is communication? So she gave me a definition that I'm not going to tell you in a whole, but generally she was very, very specific about what communication is. However, the definition is very broad, and we don't know really what is communication. But let's say it's a transfer of information between people. So, and I asked her, what are the important components of teamwork? She answered, people living in peace with one another. And I said, oh my God, this statement is hilarious. Well, I believe it's true. If people are in peace, they cooperate well. That's so obvious, right? So maybe she solved all my problems at once with just one. It's a real chat, you know, it's amazing. So and she said, and later she started to flirt with me and said that she has a similar wavelength with me, and of course, obviously, okay, sorry for. So, all right, forget about Cookie, but let's go back and solve the problem with the method. Let's be serious now, because that was a joke. So let's first define the problem, get rid of the details, analyze and solve it in smaller chunks, and then achieve composability and look for reusability in different problems. So let's be serious and let's have this Cartesian approach, and moving towards abstraction. We always when we move towards abstraction, we forget about certain details. The details are forgotten. The details are hidden behind a layer of abstraction. And look, for example, if we are programming in assembler, is there anyone here in the room who programmed in assembler, in C++? Okay, some people, some of you, but in C++, unfortunately, you need also to control the types, to control maybe even the access to data, and maybe some pointers. Generally, there is a lot of more to do than in modern languages like Python or Ruby or Node.js. The issue is that first our approach to programming machines was imperative. We said, let's do this, let's do that, and here is the way how you do it. So we are very specific in terms how to achieve special targets. And later we started to be more declarative. We started to say, hey, I want to achieve this, like in CSS. I want to be this object-centered. You don't write how the computer needs to center it. You just give a declaration and ta-da! Magically, you have the output. So a similar situation might be in communication and management. For example, there are managers who are imperative, so they stand behind your back and tell you, you need to achieve this, to make this solution, you need to go this way, and I'm looking at you, and and I hope you're going this way. No, it might be a modern management is more declarative. I want, for example, this solution to provide me such output. This is very well described, that we want this system to be deployed by Friday, let's say. And so it's working on production as it is working on staging. So that's the whole deal. We have a description. We don't say, hey, run 100 servers and just in case run 500 more so that it doesn't go down. No, it's all behind the layer of abstraction. We want to have a working system. And the team building is always a process. What I think that in Poland, generally because of our history, we have a difficulty to trust other people from the beginning. We start very modestly. We trust a bit, and then we trust more, and we trust more, and we trust more. So generally, why people are not very declarative, are not trusting that if we say we want to have a pizza here at 8 o'clock, Why we don't think that this is going to be the right pizza, it's going to be good? Because we generally don't have too much trust. So we ask about the details. Is the driver going to be here at this time, and so on and so on. So we go too much into details, so it makes obviously the management more difficult, but at the same time we are more certain that everything goes step by step as we want. So here I wrote two more sentences. I also wanted to say that if we grow in a team, then we know each other better. So communication is easier because we know what are the strengths or weaknesses of our partners. So team building, older teams are usually better if they also know what are, oh, pizza is calling me, very fun. They probably don't trust me that I'm at CIC floor 1 and at 73, and they need to reconfirm that I'm obviously here. Doesn't matter. So then we learn how to tackle problems with the right people. Then we trust that if we tell the front-end developer to do this front-end task, he's going to solve it, and so on and so on. So listen, I have a theory. No, a hypothesis. It's not a theory, because theories are complex. They have solutions. They have many people that believe. No, it's a hypothesis that some of us programmers approach communication as black boxing. So I know my deal, I know my field, I'm going to do my field, and I assume that other people know their field, and let's throw on them tasks and let's wait for the output. That's black boxing. What means black boxing? Black boxing is when we don't know how things are processed, when we forget about all the details. We have a layer of abstraction, and we believe that certain people can deliver certain outputs, certain they can just give us certain solutions. So the strategy here is to make our tasks according to the requirements, and communication only boils down to getting tasks as input and solutions as output. So then we evaluate ourselves in this process that we are performing well if we give the output according to the description. And that's all. Maybe that's good enough for our communication and teamwork. However, let's go back to programming. Let's go back to programming. Let's go back to object-oriented programming. And let's remind what Anton said today about parallel processing. This will be something that is going to be connected to the subject. So object-oriented programming was a great idea to hide a lot of things behind an abstraction and think about objects as separate parts of the system which are composable and are easy to use. So we use all our methods here again, and we say, okay, so let's say that we organized our code base in objects, and we hid mutation and data sharing. What's going to happen? Yeah, guess what? If you have concurrency, if you want to implement concurrency, we will be destroyed, because there is something that is a race condition, and we have no access to know how the objects change the information, how they put the information together. So obviously we are ruined. Our system is broken permanently because we used the wrong approach to tackle the problem. If we want to have concurrency, we need to have functional programming. Sorry, it works like this. We cannot use this kind of abstraction because we hide exactly what it should be explicit. We hid mutation and data sharing. It's stupid. It's the wrong approach. So we can actually, this shows us that we can make abstractions in the wrong way. That sometimes, if we want to, if we abstract something, we can fail in what we are abstracting, because mutation and data sharing here are important. So I think that some of us have this line of thinking. I mean, some of us nerds. I was a nerd, and this is my way of thinking when I was 12. No, when I was 21. Sorry. So things I do. I had learning skills. I had skills how to learn, and I had skills with relationships. So I was looking. Okay, so which of them are predictable? Well, obviously, learning skills, if I learn, I know more. So learning was giving me profit. It was observable that I could learn more and was better in what I was learning. I was better playing chess. I was better at maths if I invested in it, and so on and so on. But with relationships, it was different. With relationships, you actually don't know what the output is going to be because the situation is much more complex. Human relationships are possibly one of the most difficult, unpredictable things you can find out. So if you don't know what is the output, then you don't take the risk. So you can just remove it and you become a nerd because mostly you are very educated, but you don't even try to build relationships. So is there a predictable, what was wrong here? That the relationships are unpredictable, but maybe we can make something, maybe we can imagine a model where relationships are predictable. And predictable cooperation is described by game theory, for example. You know all the prisoner's dilemma. We have two possible strategies, deflection or cooperation. As you remember, there are two prisoners. If they cooperate, they only get 3 years of punishment. If they don't cooperate, so one of them is deflecting, so one of them is telling on the another. Then the prisoner who is betrayed gets 5 years, and the one that was, for example, telling on the other one is going to be safe. So he has, and if for example, all of them, both of them are bad for each other, so both of them say, hey, it was his fault, then they all stay in prison for a longer time. So the best cooperation, so here are points, so it's the other way around. So if all cooperate, they get 3 points. If one of them only cooperates, or actually one of them cheats, then 5 points. And in case of mutual if they both don't cooperate, they get the less points if they would cooperate together. So in this case, this actually theory, I think, describes most of the relationship problems that most of us in most of our bad cooperation is described here in deflecting from 2 ways. So we don't want to cooperate because we don't want to take the risk that someone will betray us. That's actually why I promote to take the risk and maybe be betrayed. So. But maybe we can actually find predictability because we're not playing the game only once. That's the miraculous thing. We are playing these same games in many iterations, so we can recognize that someone is a cheater. We can recognize cheaters. We can find people who really want to cooperate with us, so we can build trust. We can aim long-term relationships with long-term mutual support and mutual understanding and working together and with making fast iterations, we can acquire the trust faster. So we actually learn how to cooperate this way, and this way we can forget about the black box model that I said in the beginning, because humans are not simple. They're very complex, and it's super impossible to find out, or it's very ignorant to think about a person like a black box that is going to behave no matter who is it exactly. So if we know other people around us, their strengths, their weaknesses, if we are interested in other people, then we can really achieve better cooperation. And what are the obstacles? What prevents us to do it? So this is something I learned from Barry, actually. What is the difference between ambition and aspiration? When you aspire, you want something more. When you're ambitious, you also want something more. So they're both similar. But ambition is when you want something for yourself, to prove yourself, that you're strong work for yourself. And in aspiration, you actually give the margin that maybe you will achieve this target together with someone. Maybe yes. Why so much ego? Why so much yourself? So people also like to hide incompetence. They don't want to be honest about their weaknesses. So it's very hard actually to know your teammates' weaknesses, but it's good to know them, and it's good to share your own weaknesses, because then they can actually give a match with you and help you in all of these things that you're not capable to do. And lack of listening, for example, also prevents us from good communication, of course, because we speak so much, as I do now. Or, for example, we are too optimistic about our expectations, and we think that we can deliver in 1 week, because then we feel, oh, my boss is happy because I told him that we will deliver in 1 week, but he's now happy, but later not. And lack of hope. That's the opposite. That's the opposite problem, that when we say we don't want to tackle this problem because we think that communication is too difficult, so we cannot do anything to improve it. So it's the opposite, the imbalance to the other side, when we don't believe that any effort makes any sense. So listen, we all have now issues with communication, because all the world moved to remote, and we are remote. We cannot actually communicate well, because our evolution adapted us to read our body language, to understand our tone of voice. But when we write on Messenger something, we can be terribly misunderstood. It's very hard to understand someone's intention. Is it a kind message, or is it a harsh message? We don't know. We don't know. So if you have an issue with someone on Messenger, call him, meet with him. It's so super important, because you should not guess that this is bad will or being malevolent or something. It's better when you guess that, it's the problem because of remote and asynchronous environment, which makes our communication impossible or very difficult. So remember, if you have conflicts, Cookie, this chatbot was right. If we are in peace, we're going to have good communication. So my questions, not answers, my questions to you are: what makes your cooperation good? What does improve cooperation? Are routines improving communication? Because we believe that routines stabilize and make the cycle and make things predictable. And what holds you back if you predict issues in advance? For example, now when I told you this presentation, you might predict that because of remote work you have an issue of communication, not because of yourself. Don't shame yourself. We all are humans. So there are some certain sources I wanted to share with you. Some of them are good quality. I think especially this book from 17th century by René Descartes, the Discourse on Method, is really good, because everyone should read it at least once. It's very short, like 20 pages. And the Evolution of Trust. This is the most brilliant material that told me everything about communication I needed to know in 30 minutes. If you do this course, and if I inspire you to do this course, it will be much better than listening to my presentation for several times, because the game actually solves. It gives you the idea of the structure of communication, how people actually should behave to be successful. I mean, as a group, it's incredible. It's amazing. So yeah. So she told me that I'm pride, because I wanted her to learn something from my words, and obviously I learned from her. That's really true. So yeah, that's all from me. So thank you very much, and I hope you will see me at next Warsaw JS and Coffee. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. We thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Jantara. Fantastic. You guys, I don't know if you know, but we've worked together and cooperated, and I've learned to cooperate a lot from this gentleman and what cooperation means. More importantly, I want to thank you as Master of Ceremonies for actually showing up in person. This is a much different activity than watching online, and this is part of the thing that I'm so amazed by, is that people actually came out of their homes and took whatever risk it was or whatever it took to come here and be in the company of other people, because I'm seeing that this remote working environment is not taking us anywhere positive forward. I think it's necessary to network, it's necessary to converse. And does anyone have any questions for Piotr?
Thank you very much. It was very insightful. And I want to tell you about errors in communication. And sometimes it's like that we are talking about the same thing. And it's...
You have a question?
Yeah.
A comment is also
Yeah.
fine.
It will be introduction. So we are talking about the same thing, and we can use lots of methods like paraphrase or summary up. And what do you recommend to use to make better communication with the other person?
Well, it's amazing you're asking this question. I haven't mentioned this, but obviously after meetings, if we collect notes, if we have someone who is so generous that provides notes from the meeting and actually help people to remind what they decided about, it's amazing. And ask if we don't understand. So it also is quite courageous to tell someone that, hey, I didn't understand you, because maybe he will think that I'm stupid, that I don't understood, or maybe he will think that he is stupid, that he couldn't actually express himself. So it's dangerous. But if we have enough trust between each other, we will do it, and we will say, hey, I don't understand you, so can you? I don't accuse me or you about that. It's just that's the language is not very precise. That doesn't work. Like there are equivocal statements in both Polish and English and any language. So obviously more communication is better, and that's the hint.
Did I understand you correctly, that asking if you think you didn't understand something is okay?
Yes, it's fine, okay.
And also repeating the same information again and again
repeating,
is not the worst thing in the
No,
world?
it's not. It's not. Even if other people think first that you're stupid, it's still okay.
Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
Does anyone else have a question? Here we go.
As a follow-up, also basic empathy helps.
Oh yeah.
I have a different question. Can you go back to the prisoner dilemma,
Yeah.
matrix?
Mhm.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, if one prisoner
More points is
cooperates-
better. More points.
one prisoner cooperates,
Yeah.
and the other defects.
Yeah.
The first one gets 5, and the other gets set free.
0.
Okay, so the factor gets set free. So how does it work with the unwritten rule of the streets that snitches get stitches?
Snitches get stitches, but only once. They only once get the stitches, because if they meet again in the same situation, sorry, they will always get. They will deflect on each other. So a group of prisoners that cooperate in the long term will get the summary. The sum of points will be better for them. So if I always think that long term is the solution. So if actually internet and maybe remote not, but internet, for example, provides this transparency. We know the record of people. So it's we all should fight for a good reputation. So
Yes, and anyone who's ever been in prison, not that I have, who's been in prison knows that the long-termers, the ones who are there for a lifetime, they have a long-term commitment. They know what's up. They are cooperating for the long run, and someone who comes in for a second and thinks that they're going to get out by defecting on another is the one who gets the stitches. That's my answer to the same question. They do have a commitment to cooperate long-term prisoners as a rule, from what I've heard.
from the crowd.
Anyone else have any questions for Piotr? Will anyone? Oh, thank goodness, there's one more. I have a reason for living. Thank you, Luisa.
There is one question from our online audience from Gondron. Is blackboxing like Waterfall, where development takes 19% of time, and then integration takes the other 90%?
Oh my God, I like Godron's comments. They are very insightful, and actually it's very accurate parallel. I think it's an accurate parallel. So because it was the first technology, but it's good that we had the first technology. We wanted to start with Waterfall, and let's see what happens. Oh, it happened wrong, right? It didn't work. Waterfall didn't work. Okay, so maybe we can find a better technology. All right, let's try with Scrum and Agile, and it works better. It just works better. So yeah, it's no shame that we were black boxing when we were on earlier stages of development. But now let's try to be more insightful about the team which we are working with, about the people we're working with, because.
That comment sounded like integration is a very difficult process, and I think part of that is the communication is so difficult.
Yes,
and this is why people are.
I didn't meant the word
It's all
integration
making so much
but
sense.
integration.
It's making sense.
In communication, you integrate. You listen. That listening is integrating. It's actually almost the same, right?
It seems to me the same.
Okay, lightning talks.
Yeah, I was just going to ask: is anyone considering giving a quick talk?